Hello, welcome back to my channel. This is the end of September. Yeah, I'm wearing a big jumper. The heating has been on as well. It's like a big no-no in the UK that you don't put your heating before October, but it's been freezing at night, honestly. Anyway, I'm preparing, as many of us are on BookTube, for Victober. It was really cool to see all the announcement. I think I'm a bit late. They posted like early and there's lots of new hosts as well, so there's lots of challenges and it's very exciting to see actually. I think it's the 10th year and there's like lots of evolution, all of these things, and it's really fun to see, and also the different takes that people do take on their approach to it, like the theme. So it's been really cool to dive through all that. And I thought I would put together a little list. It's more of a pile of possibilities, hopefuls list. We'll see how much I get through. I'm still reading a little bit for the Booker shortlist. I think I'm just reading one more right now, and then I'm just waiting on hold. So we'll see when it comes. I'm traveling for the first 10 days of the month, so I don't know how much reading I'm gonna get. I think it's gonna be big days, basically doing all of Italy at that time. So it's gonna be lots going on. So I'm gonna focus my energy on that. Probably less on reading, and definitely probably not audiobooks since I'll be with lots of other people. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. And then the second half of the month, I guess again we'll see how things go. It's the time of year when you want to start getting cozy and stuff. So nice. Actually, last few weekends I've just sat down on my couch and read like sometimes a whole book in one go, so that's nice, you know, that kind of feeling. Yeah. So anyway, my plans for Victober. So the group read is Hester by Margaret Oliphant, and I haven't been able to get my hands on that one. My libraries, all three that I have access to, don't have it, so I've sort of put that aside. I won't be reading that this year anyway. Then there are 10 challenges, one for each host. And they were really cool to go through, and I think they've been very aware that that is a lot of challenges, and potentially if you do one book for each, that's a lot, especially because some of the books, Victorian books, are long. I have two that are well over 600 pages on my list, so that's why it's pile of possibilities. We'll see which one I sort of get into and decide to read or not. Yeah, but I picked six. Was it six? Yeah, I picked 6 books I will give a try. I found a copy of all of them, so that's also how I build my list, of course. So I'll go through the challenges and I'll let you know. So case challenge is to read a Victorian book where friendship is featured, and one of the recommendation was The Story of the Treasure Seekers by E. Nesbit. And I did find that through my university library. They have a whole collection of like classics or historical fiction or whichever, so it's been really cool to actually get my hands on that. Never heard of it. It looks cool. It's sort of bit maybe more like children's literature, so I think that'd be nice. I think it's quite short, 250 pages as well, so yeah. Then Katie's challenge is read a book, well, a work of Victorian literature that is not a novel, so a play, a short story, poem, or a work of non-fiction. I could have made my life easy and said I'm going to read a poem. Maybe I'll get to that, but I decided to revisit an Oscar Wilde play instead. It's been a while since I've Wilde. So I would try The Importance of Being Earnest, and I went back on my thing and I was like, oh, I've actually read this, probably in college. I have no memory of it, so I'm going to give this a try. Again, I found it at university library, so yeah, I think that'd be cool actually to sort of reconnect with that a little bit. Then Marissa's challenge is to read a work of Victorian literature where a character experiences a change in class status, which I feel like is quite a lot of this books. I think one of the recommendation was Ruth by Elizabeth Gaskell, which I have on my TBR. Didn't connect with it. Like, I started listening to the audiobook, didn't really totally connect with it, so I'll see. It's quite long. But I also found Phoebe Jr. by Margaret Oliphant. This is part of her Carlingford Chronicles series, and I thought it really cool. Like, it sounds really, really fun, and it connects to another challenge that I'll mention later. Rhonda's challenge is empire spotting, and see how many times you can spot signs of the empire in the Victober reading. Honestly, just in my TBRing, in making my list, I mean, it's truly everywhere. A lot of them mention it, or a lot of the, I guess, change in status or change in sometimes plot-wise or whatever happens. A lot of it often is also because of something that's happened, you know, like historical. So yeah, an interesting challenge, and it'll be cool to keep. I feel like I often notice it, but I think it'll be cool to keep an eye on that. Elizabeth's challenge to read a work by an underrated Victorian woman writer. So I think there was like a list of the top writers that people always mention. Obviously, I'm reading Elizabeth Nesbit for the first time, and apparently Margaret Oliphant is also on the list of sort of recommendation. I feel like even though she's a big writer of the era, I haven't heard about her since the last few years because of Victober, so I will just kind of continue with that. Taking a breath. I feel like I'm running through these at a fast pace. Apologies. Okay, Hannah's challenge is to read a Victorian work that discusses education. And again, I feel that's quite a lot, and it's quite cool about also like education of women, or I think, so the one that was a recommendation that was also on my list is The Mill on the Floss by George Eliot, and I think this is a bit of a satirization of the educational system at the time, and it's, you know, it's been on my TBR for ages. I think it'd be really cool to get back into it. I felt Middlemarch, I think, is one of my favorite books from the era, and I've never read any other George Eliot, so I think it'll be really cool to try something else. It's another long one, so we'll see. Jess's challenge is set back in time. Read a Victorian work set in a different era. And this is so cool. Like, I almost hadn't thought about it, you know? So for that one, I put 2 down. So I put Romola. I feel like I'm trying to pronounce it in a French intonation, but that by George Eliot, another George Eliot. Again, we'll see. I think it's another long one. Oh yeah, from what I found online, it's 600 to 800 pages, depending on the edition. We shall see. I'm also thinking of trying Ivanhoe by Sir Walter Scott. I think that might be cool. I haven't been able to find a copy of that. I'm sure my library here in Scotland must have it. So I will maybe look into that later in the month, especially if I discontinue Romola. Milena's challenge is spin a digital color wheel and pick a Victorian book with a cover that's primarily features that color. And I did it. I was too excited. I've already done it. I could have done it live for you, but no. I picked, well, I didn't pick, but the digital wheel picked for me blue. So I feel like I had a blue one, and it might have been discontinued. Which one was the blue one? Yeah, it was Lilith by George MacDonald, which is from the following challenge. But then I was like, I'm not sure I'm going to read it. So I shall see if I can find an edition of a book I've already picked that's blue. So the next challenge is Roy's challenge, was to read a Victorian work of fantasy, which again I thought was so cool. Like, it's just almost something I hadn't really thought of. So yeah, I had previously picked Lilith by George MacDonald. I think it was quite a long one, so I was like, I don't know if I can really manage that. And then there was also The Wood Beyond the World by William Morris, which is shorter. Again, I found a copy of that one. So I was like, this is really cool to discover a new thing. But I did decide to actually have my pick of a shorter one. And one I've already read, but I thought would be cool to revisit, is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. So yeah, I'm kind of happy with that one, actually. I think it's going to be cool to go back into that world. And finally, Catherine's challenge is to read a Victorian book that has a connection to Jane Austen. Again, I was like, this is so cool. You know, like, yeah, loving the challenges, like really taking me out of the comfort, reading Elizabeth Gaskell every year, which Gaskell-Tober is my thing. Do you see how few Gaskell there are on this list? Mm-hmm. So this is the one where I put Phoebe Jr. by Margaret Oliphant. So one of the recommendations was sort of part of the Carlingford Chronicle series, which is very reminiscent of Jane Austen. And actually Phoebe Jr., like when I found it on my university Libby app, it said something like, for fans of Jane Austen. I was like, yes, that's perfect. So yeah, so I'm quite pleased with those 6 picks. Obviously I've mentioned more books, But the sixth pick that I'm hoping to maybe get to is The Story of the Treasure Seekers by Ian Nesbitt, The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde, Phoebe Jr. by Margaret Oliphant, The Mill and the Floss by George Eliot, Romola by George Eliot, maybe, we'll see, and Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. Yeah, I'm so excited, honestly, and I think it's going to be a good reading month and a good sort of interesting dive into different things. I feel like I'm really trying to go out of my comfort zone for once with Victober, and I look forward to seeing how it goes. And I'm going to try to focus on the authors I've not read before. We'll see how it goes. I'm still a little bit in mood reading vibes / I have so much things going on, but I'm excited for all of these titles. Even the ones that I mentioned that I was like, probably won't get to them, still added to my TBR, you know, very exciting. Let me know what your plans are for Victober. What's the book you're most excited to read? Is it Hester, or have you picked something else, you know, a little bit out of your usual foray? Let me know in the comments, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and Hissy back. Bye!